This is a special preview of our October bonus episode on something called the Mice Quotient. The full version of this episode is available right now on our Patreon. We release these bonus episodes every month, and they're longer than our usual episodes so that we can dive deeper into more complex topics. Please consider supporting us on Patreon to access these bonus episodes, as well as video versions of our regular episodes and access to our community Discord server. Enjoy! Hello and welcome to the October bonus episode of the One Shot Show. Thank you very much for supporting the show on Patreon. And we're not wasting any time with this because we've got a really meaty, very interesting topic to cover off before we get stuck into that. My name is Matt. I'm joined here, of course, by Patty.
Hello, I'm most well. Happy to be here. I'm so excited for this topic. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, so today we're talking about something called the Mice Quotient, which is a really fun little acronym. It reminds me of Ninja Loans. Do you remember that? No income, no job, approved.
I do remember.
I like a funny acronym. The Mice Quotient. This is a literary tool, and I love talking about and utilizing literary tools for TTRPGs. I think there's so much meat and potential in them. So I'll give a bit of background of what it actually is, how it works, and how you might be able to use it in your games. So the Mice Quotient, it was originally devised. It was originally developed by Orson Scott Card. The less said about him, the better. It is essentially 4 different categories of thing in a story, and generally speaking, a story is going to predominantly revolve around one of those 4 things. So MICE stands for milieu, inquiry, character, and event. They're essentially 4 different fundamental structures to a story. What those actually then mean are, let's take a story that would be an event story. This is one that's very self-explanatory. A thing happens, we spend the plot of the story dealing with the thing, or trying to undo the thing. Or, a thing is going to happen or is unfolding and we are attempting to prevent it. So an example of this is the moon crashes into the earth, right? That event takes place and now we have this story about, the fallout from the moon crashing into the earth.
I was thinking that disaster movies or event movies or event or disaster TTRPG, that big introductory catalyst feels like a great use of an event structured mice.
So I'll go through each of those categories, and then I'm really excited to talk about how you can then actually use them in your RPG games, because the way these I keep saying RPG games, I noticed myself do that in a previous episode. These are really useful, obviously, for fiction writing, and then the way that they apply to building your campaigns and running your TTRPGs is a little bit different. So, milieu, it basically means world, but Weiss Quotient just doesn't sound as good. So, a milieu story is about the world. The most interesting and important thing about the story is the world and the environment and exploring it. This is your classic Stranger in a Strange Land story. A milieu story is more interested in the setting itself, the nuances of it, the interesting things about it, if there's certain gimmicks to it. An example of this is, what if you had samurai in the Wild West, right? And the story might not even need to have really fleshed out characters. The story is interested in just exploring this strange world where a samurai finds himself in the Old West. That would be a classic milieu story. We're exploring the world. The world is the most interesting thing. An inquiry story, this is sometimes called idea instead of inquiry, but an inquiry story, the classic example of this is a mystery. An inquiry story is asking a question, and the story ends when the answer is found. That question could be, what happened to all the dwarves? They're missing. What happened to them? That's the question we ask. We're going to answer that question, and that's when the story ends.
Or who done it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The classic murder mystery whodunit is a great way to do that. Another another really cool thing of this, a way you can go about this is a more RPG-oriented structure, is what if X setting, but Y is introduced? That's not the question being asked for the story, but that is how you create the question within the world. We have a very standard fantasy setting, and then guns are introduced. And we're going to answer the question. There is a little bit of event to this as well, but the story is going to potentially be what now happens? What is the repercussion of this? And we end the campaign when we reach some kind of answer to that. C stands for character. Character, in the context of RPGs, is very self-explanatory. This is where the most important thing in the story are the people in it. When you're writing a book, obviously that's going to be, your sort of cast of characters and how they interact in their relationships and how they evolve. A lot of literary fiction fits into this category. Obviously, in an RPG, that's even more so. That's just a natural part of most of these games. And then event is that, as you sort of said, an apocalypse happens, a disaster unfolds. Those are all classic ones. To talk about them, though, in an RPG context, I think is to take them through a slightly different lens. And I want to start this off with the very bold statement: character stories are easy but boring. You need to have a significant amount of at least one of the other three pillars of the quotient to actually create an interesting and engaging story.
I would say, my immediate first response to that on hearing it makes sense to me, especially with the framing from before of going, a TTRPG story, you have a GM and you have players who are embodying characters at the table. It almost feels like that's part of the baseline of what's happening, is that they are going to be exploring characters. Each of them in their own mindset probably considers themselves a protagonist inside their own story, and they'll be playing out their own character narrative. So then for you go as your job as GM is to layer something else on top?
Generally, yeah. And I mean, I'll sort of take this back to that comparison to fiction. I use the example of literary fiction. Look, literary fiction works really well as character-driven stories because it's this interesting cast of characters, some of whom might be relatable and some of whom might be not quite like you at all. And it's really interesting to get inside the minds of these people and understand how they interact, because we are doing that as an observer. In our tabletop games, we are doing that as a player or sometimes as a GM. And as you say, each player is very interested in their own story, but you might not actually be that interested in the other person's story. The interaction is exciting and interesting, but you're not actually getting inside the heads of the other characters. You don't read their stream of consciousness like you do with a book. We hope you enjoyed that preview of this month's bonus episode of The One Shot Show. You can find the full version right now by going to patreon.com/oneshotshow. Your support helps us keep the show alive, while also granting you access to a ton of extra content and perks. Consider supporting us today, and we'll see you in the next one.